Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that came out December 16th, 2017 in The Nation. These pharmaceutical companies are making a killing off of the opioid plague. And guess what they are? Because, see, they're not regulated. So they can price gouge and pretty much do what you want. But see, this is what happens when you insist on running your country with no regulations. The pharmaceutical company can take something that you heavily depend on to save lives and price gouge. And that's exactly what's going on. I will leave the link to this article in the description box. On September 16th, 2014, 25-year-old Matthew Comfort walked into his mother's bathroom in the working class Philadelphia suburb of Bensalem. And that's like a 15-minute ride from my house. I'm not far from Bensalem. Shot up heroin and died from an overdose. His mother, Liz Fox, was working at home that day to keep an eye on her son, who had struggled with addiction for 3 years, including spending time homeless on the streets of Kensington. And Kensington is Pennsylvania. Okay. They're talking about Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. Once the heart of the city's manufacturing industry, and today it's the epicenter for injection drug use. And that's very true. You go over there, the hypodermic needles are everywhere. It's really bad. It's one of those places that's been hit hard by the opioid epidemic. Once the heart of the city's manufacturing industry, and today's its epicenter for injection drug use, he had recently been released from jail where he had served time for thefts. And that's usually what happens when they run out of money and they're craving for the drugs. That's when crime will go up. And that the same thing happened during the crack epidemic. And the drugs will drive the crime up. They need money to support the habit. So when and junkies, ladies and gentlemen, always run out of money. They always run out of money. And as soon as they do, they will turn straight to crime to satisfy their addiction. And that's what he did. All right. So he was serving time for thefts that he had committed to supply his habit. At his mom's house, the two had searched for an inpatient rehab slot with no success. Before he left jail, Fox had asked her son to to be sent right to rehab, but received no response. So she made an effort to try to get help for her son and was pretty much ignored. In jail, Matt has been forced to detox. As a result, his tolerance was low when he was released, putting him at higher risk of overdose. Nonetheless, the Bucks County Jail had not supplied him with Naloxone, a drug that can reverse overdoses and that might save his life. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's no guarantee that it's going to save his life, especially with the drugs laced with the fentanyl. And his mother didn't really know much about naloxone. Well, if your mom don't know what narcan is, and she was the only one in the house with you, that might be a big problem right there. Or that was something that she might want to keep on hand. Shockingly, the emergency crew that responded wasn't carrying it either. Wow. So the EMTs showed up at the house and nobody had Narcan. Wow, this is the first time I've ever heard that. Usually, EMTs always have Narcan. I never, this has got to be the first story I've heard where they showed up and didn't have it. Wow. I think everyone should have it and everyone should be trained and ready because we're losing a whole generation. That's why they're calling this group that's on drugs the lost generation, because so many of them are dying and overdosing multiple times. Fox said, who now volunteers with Angels in Motion, which armed with Narcan distributes food, clothing, and other resources to users on the Philly streets. Yet for all Naloxone's life-saving promise, the drug remains out of reach for thousands of people who need it. From cities like Philadelphia and New York to southwestern Ohio, family members and first responders are struggling to pay for enough doses to treat the need. And that's true, because when they have the drug laced with fentanyl, it takes many hits of Narcan to bring them back. It's not like you can give them one shot up the nostril and that's it. Sometimes I think the most I heard, one guy had to get 20 hits of Narcan to bring him back. And I think this was like out in Ohio, a story that I did a few months ago. And that is partly because of the high price of the drug, and the drug is limiting its distribution, even as an opioid plague tears through the United States. Wow. Between the beginning of February 2015 and the end of January 2016, an estimated 52,898 Americans died from a drug overdose, many from opioids like OxyContin, heroin, and most alarmingly, from the extreme potential synthetic fentanyl, which comes from China. You know what? You want to hear something? I taught school in the early part of 2000. And I had a student in my class that was taking OxyContin. And this man had terrible mood swings. I mean, one minute he would be okay, then the next minute he would be angry and just carrying on. And I never knew why. And he told me one day, he says, I'm on OxyContin for all the pain that I'm in. Because he had, his hips were bad and the doctors didn't want to replace his hips yet. So he was in agony. And I just remember his mood swings. And it never dawned on me until now when I'm reading this story, it was the OxyContin doing that to him. But see, back then, nobody was talking about an opioid plague or epidemic back then. But there were quite a few people during that time that were taking it, and it was being heavily prescribed. And I had some surgery, and I know I told you guys about this, and I was given hydrocodone. And I remember I had this little teeny amber bottle, and it was a woman that had surgery at the same time, around the same time in my office. And her bottle had to easily been a 60-day supply. It was huge. Mine was a little, probably 1 week supply, and she had enough to probably get through 2 weeks. It was a huge difference. But I really thank the doctors for doing that, because you spared us. Thank you. In the year that followed, the number of fatal overdoses recorded rose to 64,070. Many of these deaths should have been preventable. Naloxone can reverse an overdose before it fatally depresses a user's respiratory and central nervous system. But as overdose deaths spike and government moves to respond, companies have seized an opportunity to profit from the crisis by exploiting skyrocketing demands. And they're going to continue to do that, y'all. They're in it for money. They don't care what's going on with the population that's affected by the opioids. You know, you got to look at it this way. It was Big Pharma that supplied the opioids in the first place. They got everybody hooked on it out here. And they are now the supplier of the Narcan. They can't lose in this whole thing. They can't lose. I know all these states are suing them, but believe me, they're not even putting a dent in the budgets these pharmaceutical companies have. Believe me, they're not. They're not. And the worst part is all of these lawsuits from states, not one drop of that money filters down to any of the drug addicts. So it's really the state making the money and keeping the money, and the addicts are still stumbling around out here untreated. So let's look at the cost. Amphastar Pharmaceuticals, for instance, raised the average wholesale price of its naloxone, which can be injected or outfitted off label with an atomizer and an intranasal use. Okay. So I know I saw the one where they can place it on the skin to bring back people. And I also seen the one where it's like a nasal spray. All right, so it's from $20.34. That's where it used to be at one time. And now it's $39.60, according to a December 2016 paper in the New England Journal of Medicine. The price of the popular Narcan nasal spray manufactured by ADAPT Pharma and approved in 2015 has not been raised, but it came on the market in 2015 at a high average wholesale price of $150. The largest price hike for Evzevo, an auto injector device designed for easy use by laypersons in 2014, a two-dose package of Evzevo manufactured Kaleo costs $690. That is outrageous for something that you spray in somebody's nasal passage. Woo! As of 2016, it's cost $4,500. Woo! That's more than 500% increase. That is outrageous. That's why I'm saying, it don't matter all these states suing the pharmaceutical company. You know what? They're making a killing on this. You're talking about 50 states, because of the drug addiction in America, is buying Narcan. They aren't even feeling those lawsuits. Trust me, they're not. They're not. Meanwhile, sales of naloxone have increased from 21.3 million in 2011 to 60.8 million in 2014 to 274.1 million in 2016. That's because they keep gouging the price and they know people are going to buy it. And that's the thing. They have to buy it. They're between a rock and a hard place. They have to buy this or their people will die. They have no other way of saving them. Okay. So, wow. Consider Philadelphia, where more than 900 people died from a drug overdose in 2016, and significantly more are expected to die this year. June, the death rate had jumped nearly 60% over the same period the previous year. In Philadelphia, explained Alicia Taylor, a spokesperson for the City of Philadelphia Office of Health and Human Services, in an email. The high prices of naloxone have limited the number of doses that the local government and its partner organizations can purchase and distribute. And that, she said, has hurt our ability to treat overdoses and save lives. Wow. Indeed, the situation is such that the Tuttleman Foundation this year stepped in with a $50,000 grant to help supply naloxone kits to police officers. The donation was expected to allow the city to double the number of officers carrying the anti-overdose drug from 1,500 to 3,000. Okay, or almost half the force. You know, wow. I don't know how they're going to continue to be able to afford Narcan. $4,500. My God. That right there should tell you they really don't care about these junkies, because if they did, they would never make a drug that so many states are depending on that unaffordable. Wow. I'm going to leave the link to this article in the description box, but please tell me what you think in the comment section. Please leave your comment and subscribe, and don't forget to hit on that notification bell. Peace, family.